Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff Mom Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And welcome to another subsegment, I don't know, of Women Around the World, fictional Women Around the World. And today we're hopping over to New Zealand to talk about Officer O'Leary from the What We Do in the Shadows universe from the spinoff. Currently, this is one of the main characters on the CW show that I'm in love with, Wellington Paranormal, which you can find on the CW or HBO Max. And yes, I do love What We Do in the Shadows, both the movie and the show, which is the show on FX is about to have its season 3 premiere. And I definitely want to come back and do an episode on Nadia. I'm going to talk about her briefly at the end of this one, but that is in the works. And you can see the episode I did on Movie Crush about the What We Do in the Shadows movie to learn more. But basically, the What We Do in the Shadows universe was created by Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. First, a movie by the same name. Although they did have and you can still find it on YouTube, they had a short that they did first as a proof of concept. And then they made the movie in 2014. And then they did some shorts after that, a lot of them in conjunction with the New Zealand Documentary Board or with New Zealand Air. They did a Wellington tourism ad. Then they did the spin-off show, the TV show on FX, which I adore. And now Wellington Paranormal on the CW. Though it aired before this in New Zealand, and I accidentally got spoiled as much as you can get spoiled in a show like this, because I was looking it up to research this, and I was like, oh, the episode summaries, what? So this show follows Officers O'Leary and Minogue, along with Sergeant Maka, as they tackle or attempt to tackle paranormal activity in Wellington, New Zealand.
Okay, so O'Leary and Minogue were first introduced in the 2014 mockumentary horror film as a pair of bumbling cops who were glamoured when investigating a vampire den and showed up again later after a werewolf attack. Yes, and this movie was hilarious. It took me a while to get into it. As I've been introduced, I'm like, hilarious. So O'Leary is played by, who was actually a teacher, a kindergarten teacher?
Yeah, she's a kindergarten teacher. Mm-hmm.
And is also a comedian, Karen O'Leary, who had never acted before landing the role in What We Do in the Shadows. I love it. Allegedly, Clement was struggling to think of a name, so he just went with O'Leary and Minogue because they sound police-like.
Yeah, and it's interesting knowing that now because a lot of how O'Leary acts, I can see her being a teacher because she's very oh, you're not going to have a good time, or you're not going to have a good time if you stay up too late, or if you do it. She's very kind of practical and no nonsense in that way. And her first name has not been revealed over 3 seasons, which I think is part of sort of the running joke. I don't think that's any slight on her being a woman and not having a first name. However, Minogue's was revealed, but it was part of a joke because he's getting picked on by these other cops. And they were calling him Kylie Minogue. And he leaned in and said, actually, it's Kyle, and the E is silent.
Poor dude.
Yes. That says a lot about his character, actually. Much of the movie was ad-libbed, and the humor of both the movie and the show is very, very dry. It's very straight-faced and deadpan. Both the movie and the show really lean into being set in New Zealand and the character of New Zealanders as well. So it's really low-key. When O'Leary does bad cop, for example, she just leans in and says calmly, stop that. You're scaring me. And it's sort of a send-up of cops. It's filmed with hidden cameras, dash cams, and documentary crew. There's a lot of investigating noise complaints and parties and telling people to be quieter, or ghosts to be quieter, as it so happens. It's very matter-of-fact and calm in the face of ghosts and monsters and werewolves and vampires and zombies, treating them just like any other citizen, or often they're more concerned about the paperwork than the fact that there are aliens making clones, which they do make a clone of O'Leary. I haven't seen the episode where the clone comes back, but apparently it does. So O'Leary believes she's really competent, and she is more competent than Minogue, I will say, and often Sergeant Maka as well. And Sergeant Maka is the one who loves the X-Files. His underwear says the truth is in here on the band. He is so into it. He takes it so seriously, but both of them are just kind of what is this? And O'Leary definitely takes things in stride. She's very down to earth. She's, often more annoyed that paranormal creatures are flouting New Zealand's laws, whether it's ghosts who've been partying too long and having all these noise complaints about them since the 70s, or millennial zombies who are too busy looking on their phones and causing trouble, or jaywalking creepy clowns. And she's really annoyed about the jaywalking. And she really doesn't appreciate any suggestion. She isn't good at her job either. And she'll get really like defensive about it. There's a werewolf in particular where she's like, I learned how to do this and this and this all at police school. A lot of O'Leary's personal life and history is a mystery. We know she likes softball, plays guitar, and her worst fear is embarrassing her mother. It's often implied that she is a lesbian. She grew up in Wellington, going on to join the Wellington police force. And yes, she partnered with Minogue.
So both O'Leary and Minogue are recruited by Sergeant Maka to investigate paranormal activities around Wellington at the beginning of the show, a job they undertake and are very bad at, but earnest in their efforts. A for effort. They ask the silly questions a lot of us have about the paranormal, but they do so genuinely.
Yeah, so like for example, there's one time where they're investigating aliens and Sergeant Maka says something about like unidentified flying object. And Minogue says, well, if we identify it, is it just identified flying object? So things like that just said really flat, like deadpan.
She's not wrong.
O'Leary has also appeared in some New Zealand PSAs. She will appear in the 4th season of Wellington Paranormal, which has just wrapped post-production. And then we'll see after that. I know they're going on kind of a pause, and Jermaine Clement has said, like, we're working on another project and we'll see what happens. I do want to come back and talk about, I don't even know if it's a trope, but one day I want to come back and talk about this whole like competent woman trope. Because I feel like there's a lot of examples I can think of where there's 3 characters and 2 of them are men and 1 is a woman, and the woman is like the most competent one. So if you think of like Harry, Ron, Hermione, or Luke, Leia, Han, and then in this case, and I'm just kind of curious about that. And I mean, O'Leary is definitely, I mean, they're all bumbling. They're all bumbling cops. But of these 3, I would say she's probably the most competent.
Of the 2.
Yeah. So I do want to come back and talk about that one day. And even like in the show, you have Nandor, Laszlo, Nadia. Nadia is the most competent. But if you add Guillermo into that equation, or even Colin, I guess, but definitely Guillermo, then Guillermo's the most competent. So
yeah, Guillermo's definitely competent. But
oh, yes.
On top of that. But you think about that in sitcoms too. That happens a lot in just regular sitcoms. So not even like adventures, any of that. And adventure, because if you think of like Guardians of the Galaxy, Gamora is the competent one of all of them. And it's the one that kind of keeps them together, like calm down. As well as in New Girl, you have Cece being the competent one typically, and or Jess being the one that takes the lead. Yeah, so you're right. There's a lot of that, and we don't typically look at it closely. Yeah. But they also get being the boring one.
Yeah.
Or the most annoying or bitchy.
Right. They don't get to have as much fun, I find. Although, I mean, O'Leary is having fun. And I was thinking about this because it's not like there's been a long history of the, ditzy sex object portrayal of women. I'm just kind of curious about this as whether it's like a really leaning away from we can't make fun of women, or as kind of a response to that history, or if it's even kind of like how we do expect women to be more competent at their jobs. So I don't know. I'm just curious. I want to look into it more. I'm never like super angry that women are competent, but just curious. Just curious.
Such curious.
But yes, I love this show. I definitely recommend it. I recommend the movie and the other show as well. And as always, we would love to hear your suggestions for future fictional women around the world. You can email us at stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram at Stuff Mom Never Told You. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina.
The lead in our show as well. She keeps us together, I think.
Yes. And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.